and we will get started. So we are really going to talk from the beginning to the end, the setup of GPA, class rank, and honor roll. And I promise this will help you if you are elementary, middle, high, does not matter. If you decide to do any of these, this setup will walk you through all of that. And yes, you will get the recording so that you can go back and watch it over and over again to wrap your head around it. Because I will say, this program is very powerful in what it allows you to do with GPA, and you can do things that you never thought about doing in iNow with it. So you might want to come up later with some out-of-the-box ideas of how to make this a lot easier for you. So I'm going to start, and I will start with prefacing this because I know I have a lot of principals and counselors on the call along with a mixture of some tech directors. Some of these settings that I'm going to show you will probably be restricted, and you have to work with the district level personnel to get certain things turned on or set the correct way. So keep that in mind, that some of this might not be accessible to you right now, but at least you will lay eyes on it to know what conversations to go back and have with those in your district. So let's get started with kind of what originates everything with the GPA. We're going to start at district level, and we're going to go look at grade scale, because that grade scale is the catalyst on what can happen with these grades once they are taken from the teacher grade book and stored, which moves them over to the historical grade screen. So in this pilot site, I'm going to go into district, because grade scales are set up at the district level. Under grading, we're going to go to grade scales. Now, I'll say there are two main grade scales that are used throughout the state. We'll poke at each one so that you can kind of see where you need to look for your information to know how this is calculating. So I'm going to start with the 100-point grade scale, because we have about 60% of the districts throughout the state use it, and the other 40 use the default, which is similar to what we had in iNow. So in this 100-point grade scale, the name is exactly what it describes. It means you have a grade for each individual value, and it has all the different information with it. So if I look at this grade scale, and on this one, you'll see that I ran it all the way up to 110, because these will be the visible grades that will actually print on a report. One of the things that people have said, hey, I'm printing a report card and the kid earned 105, but it's only printing a 100 on there. Well, depending on what you show as an allowable visible grade is going to be determined inside this grade scale. This column right here counts in GPA. This column right here, oops, didn't want to hit copy on that, grade point GPAs and added value, grad credit. These are the important ones that had to be looked at. This is where you want to say what each one of these grades are worth when it starts doing all of those back-end calculations. So in this case, and I will tell you that if you did not look over this after you did implementation, you could have some errors in your C's and D's because they didn't put 4 points on a 10-point scale. They kind of did it on 10 points, 10 points, 8, and then 7 out of the box, which I don't know why, but that's how it was. So you need to lay eyes on your grade scale. Make sure that what is set in here is what you are assuming is set as far as how many GPA points an A is given, a B, C, D, F. So here you can see on the A's, they get 4 quality points in this setup. B's get 3 quality points. C's get 2 quality points. And D's get 1. And then everything that's an F gets 0 quality points in this scenario here. Like I said, I've caught on a couple of LEAs when we've gone and looked that they use the out of the box, what PowerSchool put in, and some of these B's, like an 82 and 81, were marked as 2s instead of 3. So, of course, it was calculating GPAs incorrectly. The other thing that has to be on there is if you do any type of weighting, if you do a weighted GPA, so you add those extra quality points or the 10 points to a grade for the AP classes and such, you have to tell the grade scale to be able to accept an added value to a grade. So you have to have a check in this box column right here for every grade that you are going to allow an added value to go to. So in this case, you'll see that it's marked for A's, B's, C's, and D's, but not marked for F's, because if they fail it, they're not getting an added value in this specific scenario. So make sure that you have those in there and that you have whether these grades are able to be counted in GPA. Well, yes, whatever the kid earns, that's the grade that we want them to count with. And so we want to make sure that that is checked. Those are the three biggies, because without those, it doesn't matter what I'm about to show you, none of it's going to work right, even if the rest of it is set up right. Okay? So this is the grade scale screen. Now, one other district setting that you need to check, because I'm sure we have people on the call here who allow for 7th and 8th grade credits to be awarded and also use those grades to account in GPA. If that is the case, there is a setting that you have to check to say, hey, I know my high school might be 9 through 12, but I actually want to use 7th and 8th grade classes that have credit awarded to them to be factored into GPAs. So if that is a case for your district, then when you are at district office, so again, I'm going to go to district and setup. I'm going to scroll down to district information and go to schools and school info. And you'll need to check this on each of your schools that you want to work with. If I just go into the high school here, here's all the setup of the high school, but this box right here is the one you need to pay attention to, because it comes out of the box to kind of align with the grades that are offered, the grade levels that are offered at the school. So in this case, this high school is, now it says grades 9 through 15. Remember that we added those extra grade levels in the state of Alabama this year for our special ed students who return until age 21. They don't stay grade 12 forever anymore. They now will progress to grade 13, 14, and 15 until we graduate them out. So if this is my traditional high school, grades 9, 10, 11, 12, that's typically what's set here. However, if you are a high school that accepted credits from your 8th grade classes for kids, maybe Algebra 1, Spanish, career prep, those are the big ones, and you wanted those counted in GPA, then you need to adjust this grade level right here to align with what you actually want to be counted. Because we can set it to counting courses, we can set it on the historical grades to say count it, but if you don't check it here, it will not count it in that overall formula that we're going to look at in a little while. So those are two things at district level, and again, not everybody's going to have access to these screens, so talk to your district person, need to be checked and adjusted. Everything else, we're really going to look on the school side other than the actual formula. So this is in school setup to make sure that the beginning stages are correct. Now let's get into the good stuff, the actual GPAs, which again originate at the district office. So if I go to district and I scroll down under the grading section, here we have GPA calculations. And y'all, I know that y'all are putting questions in chat. At the end, we're going to go back through, read them, and kind of do the Q&A on them. So just pop them in there as you come along, and I promise we'll get them answered. GPA calculations. You get three options. The one you want to go look at is calculation types, or excuse me, calculation methods. Now, PowerSchool went ahead and pushed in all of the main GPA formulas that everyone in the state is using. So when we were piloting this, we talked to all the pilots, we talked to different districts across the state and looked at every which way GPAs were calculated based on if they're doing added value as an addition, if they're doing it as a multiplier, etc. And went ahead and coded those formulas so that each LEA wouldn't have to figure out the math behind it to make it work. So these are the ones that you see. I want to kind of explain what each of these mean and what this formula means to kind of give you a background on it. So added value, we'll start with it because we do have the main four that I'm going to talk about. So when we talk GPAs, we have what I'm going to refer to as the standard GPA calculation. That's on your 4.0 scale. Then we're going to have the numeric GPA calculations where you want to score them based on their percentage earned inside of the class. So we're going to talk weighted and unweighted. Now, I'm going to do a mixture of terminology, guys. I'm going to say weighted and unweighted because that's what our trained mind has always said, because that's what was in iNow. Okay, PowerSchool has a different altogether concept of the word weighting, and I will preface this. I used to be a math teacher before I became tech director, before I became PowerSchool for the state. And in the mathematical world, if you've got a math background, PowerSchool's definitions are mathematically correct because you are using a weight in the credits, potential credits of these courses. So that's why it can be a little bit confusing knowing what you're looking at here based on what we called it in iNow. So we'll do a translation guide here. So let's talk added value. Added value is going to be the formula for a standard GPA. So this is going to be on quality points, our 4.0 scale. And this is the weighted one. Okay, this is the weighted, what I'm going to call the traditional, because this is what the majority of districts in the state do. It's if you earn an A in the class and you get 4 quality points and it happens to be an AP class, they're going to add 1 additional quality point to it. This formula takes that added value that you enter in at the course level and it attaches it by addition to the GPA quality points based on the number given in that grade scale. Okay, and in this formula, it says that it adds those two together, it sums it up over all the classes, it multiplies it by the potential credit. So remember, the weighting inside of PowerSchool has to deal with the credits that are earned in there. And a lot of people, when they're doing hand calculations of GPAs, forget that you take into account the actual credits that are in that class. And they divide by the sum of those potential credits of all of those courses. So when you look at your formula, you should see this formula here. And actually, I'm going to end my screen a little bit so you can see a little bit better. This formula was pushed incorrectly from PowerSchool. If you haven't done any modifications to it, this formula will work once you understand the backside of it. For the calculation type, you want to put cumulative. Get them all. If they've taken it, it's there. Always start with a base cumulative GPA. Now, I know that districts do some other things with class ranking and develop other GPAs on top of it. We can absolutely do that, and we'll talk about that, but we want to make sure that we keep this base cumulative is cumulative in there, and we'll build off of it later if we need to make copies. Do not worry about putting grade scale in there. A lot of these boxes you do not need. What you do need is the grade levels that you want to be included in this GPA calculation. So for this particular example, I'm only looking at grades 9, 10, 11, and 12. Again, if you are a district where 8th grade or 7th grade credits count, you need to put 7, 8 in there. Also notice there are no spaces between those grade levels. So if you do need to add grade level 8, you put 8, 9, no space after there. Yes, all this is being recorded. The next things that you need to do is that it counts in GPA and has potential credit. Those are the two main. Remember, this is getting our base GPA out. Now, later, if we want to say, hey, my math teacher wants to know if I can do a math GPA because I want to know mu alpha theta people who are qualified, we can go as granular as saying, hey, I want to take this base GPA and only look at math classes. Like, it by far will let you do that. And there's a couple of different places to do it. So we'll talk about that in a little while. But this is base setup for the added value, which is, again, is adding any extra quality points on top of the original points if it's a course that you have said can get added value. And we'll show where that is in courses in a few. All right, so that's added value. I'm going to go back. Added value multiplier. So there were some districts in the state that in iNow, instead of doing the addition of quality points, if they wanted to do a weighted GPA, they did it by a scalar multiple. And so they would take the grade or the GPA points and they would multiply it by 1.1, or they would say it would be on a 1.2 multiplier, something such as that. Well, PowerSchool pushed this in as well. And this one is the added value multiplier for the, again, standard GPA on the 4.80 scale. This is doing it with GPA points. So a 4 becomes a, whatever you get, 4.4 when you multiply it by 1.1. Now, you can redo this formula to do it with percentages as well to get the numerical by changing out that code to be the actual percentage instead. So we can talk about that and show you how you would deviate that in a minute. The same thing, settings here. Cumulative is going to be the calculation type. Do your grade levels. Don't worry about this other stuff, except for making sure that it has the box, counts in GPA, and potential credit. So if you were a 1.1 scalar, 1.2 district, this is what you would put inside. This would be the formula that you use. Alabama numeric. So this is going back to the numeric GPA. So now we're not talking about quality points. We're talking about taking the actual average earned, so the GPA percent, and we are weighting it. So if you have an added value, which say, hey, it's an AP class, so these kids get 10 points added to their grade. This is the formula that does that addition for you. Now, here is a very big misconception, and this is something PowerSchool cannot do. In iNow, if you did a calculation that was the added value on numeric, in iNow you saw both grades. So let's say they earned an 87 in the class in this AP English. So they get this 10-point addition. You were able to see it as an 87, you were able to see it as a 97, and it used that 97 to do the calculation. What PowerSchool does is the only grade you're going to be able to see is the 87, what was in the teacher grade book. It uses this formula to put those additional 10 points on there and uses that new number to calculate the GPA. So you never see the new value that has the 10 points added. You see the original grade and you have this 10 times formula in here. So let's kind of explain why this is being multiplied by 10. Oh, and I will say this, I completely forgot, and this is very important. This formula was pushed incorrectly by PowerSchool. It is missing a set of parentheses. If you are using the Alabama numeric formula and pulling your hair out because it's not calculating correctly, it's missing a set of parentheses that make it follow the order of operations. Here in the formula, see these two parentheses? Out of the box, when PowerSchool pushed it, they only put 1. And same here behind 10. That should have been wrapped together. So if you are looking at yours, then you will need to update this formula. And I'm actually going to copy this formula and throw it in chat. This is the formula for Alabama numeric. If you want to grab that somewhere and put it to give to your tech person, say, this formula needs to be updated. If you have not already figured it out and updated it for your district. So what this formula does is when you're doing the added value, we can only input added value in one type. We enter in 1s or 0.5s. A lot of people said, well, if I wanted to add 10 points, I need to put an added value of 10. No, you still need to leave it in those scalars. You put it in as a 1 or as a 0.5 on the course level. And what it does is if you enter in a 1 as an added value qualifier on that AP class, it's going to say 1 times 10 is 10, and then add that to the grade. So if they made the 87, it calculates with a 97. If you want it to be, for some people, they say, oh, well, if they took XYZ courses, they get 5 points instead of 10 points. Okay, well, then that means you need to do an added value of 0.5 so that it adds the 0.5 to the standard GPA 4.0 scale, and then it adds 5 points to the numeric average that they earned in the class. So that is how this formula works. It's taking the percent, it's multiplying whatever added value you have set up for the course times 10 and adding that number numerically to the average and using that to calculate the GPA. If I go back, ignore honor roll for now. We're going to talk about that in a little bit. This is just the standard how you can get high school potential credits, no problem. And you'll see where I've done some copy customizations on here. So let's talk about this simple GPA. So these are going to be your elementary and middle school where credits are not awarded. So there's no credit potential there to really take into consideration in a weighted type situation for these GPAs. This is straight math. It is adding up all of their grades and dividing by how many grades they had. That is the simple calculation for elementary and middle. Now this one is the one using the actual quality points. So yes, it might be that in an elementary school, you still want to see if they have a 3.0 or a 4.0, but we can look at the numbers in a minute. You would need to put what grade levels you would want to qualify for. So if this were for an elementary school that had grades 3, 4, 5, then I would come in here and I would put 3, 4, 5. Now, it could very well be that you have different schools in the district that have different grade levels. So you would need to make another version of this where you set it up the exact same way and probably call it XYZ intermediate school that has grades 3, 4, 5, but then XYZ middle school that has grades 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. So you might have to have multiple versions of this to attach to the correct school. Again, on this one, I would only need to include those in GPA because there's no such thing as the potential credit when you're down at elementary levels or middle school levels for the most part. And then I have the simple percent GPA calculation, which is the exact same type of calculation I just talked about, but it uses the straight averages. So simple uses the quality points GPA, straight up add them up and divide. And the weighted one, or excuse me, simple percent uses the actual numerical grade calculation to see if they have an overall average of an 85 or better or something such as that. So those are going to be your elementary and middle school GPAs if you want to use those. When it comes down here to the weighted one, this is what it says in the description, the old school I now unweighted GPA. So this is where you are given no additional points for anything. No, I don't care if it's honors, AP, regular, they're all just getting that 4, 3, 2, 1 that's out of the box on that grade scale. And everybody's going, then why is it called weighted if it's actually unweighted? Because you have to take those potential credits in there, because whole credit courses give more into a GPA than a half credit course does. So that's their definition of weighted, which mathematically is correct. The formula on this is perfect. We only had that one formula that had an error in it. Same thing right here. I would need to say cumulative types, and I would say what all grade levels it needs to encompass. So notice on this that when it was set up, because this is a pilot site that we've been playing in, we take it all the way to grade 15, because do you want the grade levels of those AAA kids to be included in there or not? Make that decision so you have the correct grade levels. You want it that count in GPA and have potential credit. And then the last calculation formula is our weighted percent. So again, this is going to be the numeric GPA, but you're not taking into consideration any added value. So why is it again called weighted? Because you've got to take that percent, multiply it by the potential credits possible in the class, and do that sum and then division. So again, the formula here is perfect. The grade levels 9, 10, 11, 12, or whatever suits your district, counting GPA and potential credit. So if I go back to the screen, the four main ones that the majority of all districts are going to use are going to be added value, Alabama numeric, weighted, and weighted percent. Unless you're one of those that does the scalar, the 1.1 multiplier, then you're going to swap this one, let's see, these two here. Instead of added value, you use added value multiplier. The other three, pretty much the same. And you can finagle this to go into this one right here. So that's your GPA calculation screen. It is also very important to note the names of these calculation methods, because PowerSchool is, I'm going to say, an old school English teacher and very picky about grammar. However you name this, so I'm going to click into Alabama numeric. This method name, when you go to call this up on the cumulative info screen, or you go to pull it into a transcript to be printed, if you do not name it the exact same way with spaces and all as what's on this screen right here, you're going to get an error message. I chased down an error in one district because they could not get this formula right here to produce anything, and I come to find out it's because there was a space behind the name. So when we kept trying to call it on the transcript, it would never print anything. Well, that's because when we put it in the transcript, we didn't put a space behind the name, so we had to take the space out. It's very picky about little things like that. So you would make a list of which names, exactly how you worded them. So if you decided to make a new one, which you very much can, you can create a GPA calculation method of anything you want. You can copy the formula from the other and then say, I want to put these extra parameters on there. Like, I want a GPA just for this school year for math classes, or whatever you want to do. You can so do that. But whatever you name it, that's what you got to use to call it up in later functions. Main screen. Yep.
So just as a review, added value is weighted standard.
Mm-hmm.
The other is weighted numeric.
Yep.
And then weighted is unweighted standard, and weighted percent is unweighted numeric.
Yes, and guys, I'm going to show y'all how to change the wording on the cumulative info screen so you can word it the way that it makes sense to you.
And which label will actually print.
So what's going to print on the transcript is the actual text you enter, and I'll pull up a transcript object code so you can see where that's coming from and working in here. I'll take you beginning to end on all of this. The one other thing I want to show you at district office is where that added value is entered on the courses. So if I, again, under setup, go to district, and I go pull up the courses. Let's see what I have filtered up here. I don't want to work with pre-cal. I want something AP. All right, so let's say that we're looking at this AP class right here. You can preset added value to courses here so that when you store the grades, and I have a kid who's enrolled in AP English, it knows to cross-reference back these course settings and attach any added value that they may or may not get. So because this is an AP class, in my world of this pilot, they are going to get one added value point to their quality points. So instead of 4 points for an A, they receive 5 points for an A. Okay, you get the idea. That also means on the numeric, if I put a 1 in, and it's this right here, this field, 1, if you put that in as a 1 here, then on the numeric, 1 times 10 is going to add 10 points to whatever numeric average they earned in the teacher grade book. So if they earned an 87, it's going to mathematically count as a 97 inside of the actual formula. Right?
Can you do it where it adds it to the standard but not the numeric?
No, if it's in there, it's going to add.
So
but if you don't want it in there, that just means you pull the unweighted.
I want it to count in I want it to have a weighted standard.
Mm-hmm.
I want it to add the quality point to my normal standard
mm-hmm.
GPA, but I don't want it to add 10 points in calculating numeric.
So what's going to happen? So Sean said he wants it to count the added value in the standard, but he doesn't want to count it into the numeric. Well, that's fine. All we got to do is what we're going to do is on this cumulative info screen, I'm going to have it to always display all 4 options to you, and you know which ones to choose. Gotcha. So we're going to make it where you see all of them, and you know which one is the one you need to report upon. And you can choose whichever ones you need to go on a transcript. So if you only want the weight to show in the standard GPA calculations and you don't want it in numeric, we just code the transcript to pull just those 2 out of the 4. Very easy to do.
And I think it's also important that Stacy started with mentioning cumulative. It is very, very important that districts have an actual cumulative GPA that encompasses all courses, grades, and credits that a student has attempted. And then you can apply your local board policy for, we want it to only count 4 of these, 2 of these, and 6 of these. That would be an additional GPA calculation, that you would want to display. But cumulative means cumulative, and we still have some districts that have struggled with that because all courses that a student attempts should be factored into a cumulative GPA. And then by all means from there, you can certainly determine locally exactly how you want to either create GPA, different GPA methods, and which of those GPA methods determine class rankings. Because there just is a difference. There's a difference between, and many of you have very unique unique policies. And then I also want to mention that having no policy is not necessarily a good thing either. And that I know Stacy said this at the beginning, but just to reiterate that the decisions regarding GPA calculations are in your policy, should be in your policy, and should be applied. And that's how it should be informing the calculations, not the reverse. We still have some schools where at the school level there are people making decisions about what is or isn't. Your policy should be driving that so that we know that it's equitable for all, because what you do for one, you must do for all. So this is really important. I know many of you have expressed concerns that your GPAs are not calculating correctly.
So once you have those added values in there, and let me make a note on those of you who use the scalar. If you are an added value multiplier district where you have it in your board policy that on your weighted courses, so whichever courses you deem get those extra points, you say that it's got to be multiplied by 1.1. If that is your policy, then you actually have to have an added value on every one of your courses, including the ones that you don't want the weight for. You cannot have any zeros if you are using added value multiplier only. I want to stress that, multiplier. If you're using that formula, then your regular classes have to have a GPA added value of 1 so that it multiplies the standard times 1. If you leave it 0, it's going to multiply it by 0 and give them no points, period. And then for the courses that you want to have the added value, you put the 1.1 or 1.2 or 1.3, whatever your scalar is. So it's very important to note that if you're using a a scalar GPA or an addition GPA, you kind of have to treat this added value box separately. If you're just doing the added value being added to it, a 4 becomes a 5, and etc., then all of your unweighted courses stay 0, and your weighted ones get the 1 or the 0.5. But if you are a scalar, a 1.1 multiplier, then your base courses all have to have a 1 to start them out, and your added value courses have to have the 1.1 and the 1.2 and so forth. Okay, so keep that in mind. I know y'all are going to replay that in the recording a lot to understand that one. So that is all of the setup at the district level. We've got the courses define the added value. We have the grade scale says what can include an added value and can it even count in GPA as a grade. And then the formulas, they're all set there and set to our liking. So now let's swap to the school and see how the school actually interprets those grades. Oh, and one thing I did not show a while ago, but let me pop it. I didn't show that other grade scale, but it works the same way. If you were on the default grade scale, you just see them in groups. So it's on a 10-point scale. Some have, and they don't have this much detail. Some of you just have the A, B, C, Ds, where A is a 90 to a 100, a B is an 80 to a 9, blah, blah. Again, do you see this? I don't have any check boxes. If I were to use this formula in this grade scale in a GPA, nobody would be able to get weighted credit because I'm not saying that any of these grades can get added value. So I would have to go in and say, yes, I want to be able to use this and give added value. So check those same boxes if you use a default grade scale as if we did the numeric a while ago. All right, now let's swap over to the high school. All right, on this, we want to set up that cumulative info screen. And let me show you the screen I'm talking about. So I'm going to pull up my favorite Mickey Mouse. Under academics is the cumulative info screen. And here is where we are going to see all of these class ranks and these GPAs. Now, I will tell you that these, as they are out of the box, don't word the same way. So we're going to do some finagling to make them word and work the way that you see. So if I go into the school setup, and again, depending on your role in the school, you may or may not have rights to this page I'm about to show you. If I go to school, scroll down, under grading, there is this GPA student screen. You probably already have a bunch of stuff defined right here. Okay? I have kind of been playing with it a little bit. You can remove any of those GPAs that you do not want to show on that cumulative info screen. So if you're setting this up at the district and you're like, I don't want simple GPA showing because counselors don't care about that at the high school, delete it out. It's okay. I deleted out some right here. Have the ones that you know your district wants to use. So let me give you kind of the above the bar and below the bar rundown right here. This is the quick lookup screen. So, I don't know. Can y'all see my video of me as well as what I'm sharing? Because I want to show something. And I have a son who is in school, and I want to show you what I'm talking about. All right. I'm hoping you're going to be able to see this. You might have to click on it. I'm going to put what I see when I log into PowerSchool on him. Okay? PowerSchool, the app, will show a GPA. But guys, it will only display one GPA. I could set up 300 different GPA calculations on the screen. When it comes to what they see on their phone in that PowerSchool app, you can only share one of them with them. So I need you to make the decision. Which is the one GPA you want them looking at? Do you want them looking at the standard and numeric, first of all? Do you want them to see a 3.2 or do you want them to see a 82? Make that choice. Then do you want to show them the weighted or the unweighted? Make that choice. And drop the right choice down in this box. So this box right here is going to list all those formulas I showed you at district office. You choose the one that you want them to see. So remember, added value is the standard weighted GPA, 4.2. Alabama numeric is the numeric weighted GPA. So that would be adding the 10 points or whatever if they took a weighted class. Weighted is our unweighted standard GPA. So not taking any added points onto that quality point scale. Weighted percent is the unweighted numerical GPA. So for our cases in this school, I want them to see their standard GPA with the additional weights added to them. So I'm going to set what they see here in this app to added value. You make the choice for your district. Now, when it comes to what you can print on a report, you can print any of those that you have set up at district office. It does not matter which ones. Now, what do I want to see on that screen? So I'm going to open a new tab. Just so I'm going to go back and forth between these two tabs. Stay inside of Mickey Mouse. So the changes I'm going to make are going to reflect this page right here. So what I've got called up right now, you'll see I renamed these titles. And I've had people that have even just like completely gone through and redid and said previously called. So I have to look at these names because what's in quotes over here, so this is the DAT tag for a GPA that calls it to the page, what gets it to display. This is also the same DAT tag, except you don't use a tilde, you use a caret, that you pull it onto a transcript with. And what you put in these quotes right here is the formula that it calls back on the district page that I told you, if you don't enter it the exact same way, it won't call it up. So the fact that I had this formula saying, hey, I want you to put the number that is calculated with the GPA method called weighted. This is weighted is really the unweighted cumulative standard GPA. Like I'm naming it so that you can see exactly what it's going to be. Then I have the weighted percent. Okay? Weighted percent. Percent means it's going to be numeric. So this is the unweighted numeric cumulative GPA. Yeah, y'all, I can't type. I have always said that that's an issue of mine, so you're going to get all kind of misspellings. I do apologize. Hey, that's that formula. Added value. Okay, added value is on the standard scale, but it's the weighted. It's getting the additional value points. So I'm going to rename this weighted cumulative standard GPA. So which one am I missing? I've done standard weighted, unweighted, and I've done unweighted. So I need the weighted numeric GPA. Weighted numeric GPA. So to add that in, I'm going to come up here and copy this formula. Just one of these, it doesn't matter which one. But I have to remember, what was the name of the formula that I used in that district screen for this? It was called AL numeric. So as long as you type the right name of it that was at district office, it will call it to this page. I also have it calculating cumulative credit hours, high school potential credits. I want to see all of that information too. And then class rank. Okay, so now we have to talk about class rank because we are going to have a tag for this, but we have to tell it which one of those GPA calculations do I use for class rank. So I'm going to say that in this school, when we rank our seniors, we use their weighted standard GPA. Well, that was called the added value formula. So I need this to say added value. If you use the weighted percent, then you type weighted percent right there. If you use AL numeric, you put AL numeric there. If you decide to create a new GPA formula that only looks at core credits, you put the name of that formula that you use right there. Once you get those written, you hit submit. We'll go away, little notification thing. Yeah, caps do not matter. Only spaces do. I know that's weird. It's like picky, but not picky. So now when I come back to Mickey Mouse and watch, when I refresh the screen, now I see those 4 that I have designated from that screen setup. So now I see a unweighted standard 3.04. I see a weighted standard 3.19. I see an unweighted numeric, and I see a weighted numeric. I see how many potential credits he has, and I see how many cumulative credits he has. So what does that mean when I've got 21 potential credits, but I've only been awarded 20.5? He failed some. He didn't get that credit for that one class. Okay? And then notice it now is populating a class rank, but I also have class rank set up. We'll talk about how to get that set up so that you can get something in there. So that controls this screen. Now, guys, I will warn you, if you're in a district with lots of high schools, lots of middle schools, you do have to set this screen up at every school. Somebody said our cumulative information is not in there. So if you aren't seeing these two lines, that just means you need to add in what I just showed you here. And remember, you're going to get the recording of this. So you will see exactly what you need to enter in if you want that information to display. And you can use these other blanks to do anything. I've had people who pulled attendance information right here. Like they want to know how many total licenses they've had. So there's a DABS DAT tag that you can use. So you have to kind of work with your tech person who's been helping with any of the report writing or the DAT tags. That's kind of that foreign language to a lot out there. And that's okay. It's why we have tech people in the schools to help that can go through and get whatever you want on here. If you want to present, mu alpha theta honor roll GPA. This is the student screen.
What about I know some would be interested in using this for NCAA. Just as again, NCAA is who makes the determination, but it sure wouldn't be a terrible idea if that's all of a sudden you have additional GPA methods that you can use in calculations. Again, mu alpha theta, National Honor Society, Beta Club.
You can put them all on here.
You could use this for National Technical Honor, so you could do all kinds of things, and you can have as many as you want or however many is on that. But it's important that the labels that you use are understood by everyone, not just the school staff. And I'm sure everyone would agree this would be a great time as you're confirming that what you have is accurate before the end of the school year, that you also allow your students and some of your educators to help with running those calculations by hand to make sure that students should be able to do this anyway, because we need as many people checking right as possible.
Yes.
There are some errors out there that are going to create drama around May 25th.
And let me show you how to check, because I know I've got councils I have probably been on with 40 different districts where we've had to go through because they're on this one student screen and they're like, that's not their GPA. I know it says 3.04. That is not correct. It should be 3.12 or something like that. Let me show you the super secret screen that will help you to see what is and is not being counted in and what numbers it's using, so that you can tell, is it an issue in the historical grades page? Is it an issue with the formula? Yada, yada. I'm still in Mickey Mouse's grades right here. I'm going to, over here on the very far left, scroll all the way to the bottom under Power Tools. There is this GPA validation screen. As a math person, this makes my heart like jump out of my chest because it is beautiful. I select the method that I want to validate. So, we just did those 4, whichever one it is. I want to look and see, I'm going to say added value. I want to check the added value calculation because I believe something's wrong. I just choose that calculation. Did my screen freeze or something? I promise this worked, y'all. Does it not? They did an update to my pilot site. It almost makes me think that they did something. Yeah, let me refresh. Isn't it great? Technology goes kaput. Are you kidding? All right, I'm going to do something, y'all.
Come back.
No, I'm going to. I am Stacy Royster, mother of Bradley Royster, who attends Opelika City Schools. I'm going to pull his up and share my son's information with you. It is completely okay. Not violating FERPA here. I give permission. Oh, I'm not going to be able to. Y'all give me 1 second. I'm going to swap over. I'm going to pull it off the screen and then put it right back, I promise. Things around. I will share Bradley, but can't share anyone else. Here's what it looks like. So this is my son. Welcome to my son. So once we choose that GPA validation screen, so I'm going to go back to it. If I'm on GPA validation and I choose that I want to look at what is being used to calculate his added value, GPA, I can check every one of them. This screen gives me all of the information. It's going to tell me the formula that I choose. It's going to tell me all of my sums and divisors, all that kind of stuff, how many years, the count of number of grades, all that's great. But what I really want to look at is if I scroll down is this. This shows me all of the grades that on his historical grade screen is being used in calculating the GPA. So in other words, if I'm on, and I'm going to pop this up in another tab, if I'm looking at his historical grades, here's all the grades that he has earned. Number one, you've got lots of buckets in here. Some of them earned credit, some of them didn't. It knows, like this computer's smart enough that it knows to only go look at grades where credit was stored for the grade. So even though I have all these Qs that didn't get any credits, it doesn't take those into consideration with the GPAs. It knows to only go on those credit-bearing courses. So here's all the grades that he has. Okay. When I go back here, this is where it tells me all of the grades it pulls in. It tells me how many quality points they earn for those grades. If there's any added value for those grades, it tells the percent for the grades, it tells the earned credit, it tells the potential credit, and whether those grades were set to be excluded. If they were, they're not going to show up here, they're going to show down here. Like I specifically do not want to include this grade right here, so it was marked to exclude, so it shows down here. So here's all the rest of his historical grades, but these are in the exclude from GPA. Like this is where the computer is showing you what it's using versus what it's not. So if I wanted to hand calculate and see what it should be, here's where I can see, oh, this 88 is given 3 points. Well, let's pretend that this was a 98 and it said 3. Then we knew that there was an issue because that should be a 4 point. I will say that I have noticed in some districts migration, some of the added value went squirrely, some of the GPA points went squirrely, and we've had to work with districts to get all of that back in line. And there's ways to find those mistakes and get them all corrected without having to click on every individual student to do it. So rest assured with that. But this is where I can see what the grade is, what the GPA points are, what the percent is, what those values are to know how it calculated this.
And at the bottom, if you scroll down to some of those, like at the very top, just a little bit, right? Trying to find where so you're using PowerSchool grades, but notice like that very first one on the list. We know those are new courses, right? Yep. It's not counting in his GPA because credit hasn't been awarded.
That's right. You see, these are the store codes Q1, Q2, X. This was a semester exam. So it knows not to use those grades in GPA because it wasn't a credit-bearing grade.
Excellent question. Is there, we noticed that the course name's not on there.
Yeah, I wish it would. I have said that a million times, but this is core PowerSchool. I don't know that there's a way to flip that on. You see it on the historical grade screen, but not on this one. But this is where I would say start because it will help you to find if there's an issue. This is where we discovered in some districts that they had the 7th grade class showing down here that they really needed to be up here, and we had to go flip that other setting to get it moved up there. Or we found that there was an 8th grade class that was marked to exclude from GPA or not count on a transcript. And so it was moved out and got it in the right place. So these are kind of the secret backdoor screens where you can see where all of these calculation factors are going into effect to get that overall GPA. And you can swap these. So now if I want to go look at the, let's just go to the weighted percent. Let's say I want to look at that to see that it's actually doing his percentages correctly. So I can again see the same thing. Here's the percent. Here's the earned credit. Here's the added value. So like on this grade right here where he made an 86, but it's got an added value of 0.5. That means in the calculation formula, it's adding 5 points to the 86. So it's actually calculating in the formula as a 91 instead of the 86. So again, you don't see that bump in the grade, but it does actually calculate it in the grade. Now, what if you find a mistake? Like what if you come in here and you go, oh no, this didn't have the right added value or it needs to be and it's just for this one kid. Y'all, it's perfectly okay to click on that grade. Like you can hyperlink all of this and it takes you into the actual grade. And if you need to make an update, like we saw that the wrong GPA, maybe it was a 82 and it says 2 GPA points, but it should have been a 3 GPA point. You can fix it here. If you see that there is supposed to be earned and potential credit and it wasn't given, you can correct it there. These corrective measures can be made in place on here. Yep. All right, yeah, we got to keep going because we're going that. So now, once we've got all of this together on there, and you have GPAs calculating, now it's time to go set up the class rank so that we can attach that class rank in there. So how do we go about doing that? So I'm going back to Pilot. I'm going to go back into the school. So I'm going to scroll down to set up school. And under grading, you see class rank. This is where we define it. So you have two things you're going to have to set up here. One is the method and one is the calculation frequency. So if I do class rank, something's probably already in there for you. It's probably the weighted one. I think that's what I've seen in the most pieces. Here, if I click on this, I'm going to say, all right, this is going to be my class rank. Which of those GPA formulas do you want to use to rank the kids? So remember, if I do this drop down, it's that same list we saw at the district office. For us, we're going to use the added value. That's the one that I'm going to say, go get everybody's added value GPA and put them in order. Make sure this says ranking, result is numeric. If you do some exclusions on GPAs, you might have to check that, but if not, you can just leave that. Do you want to exclude any students? So are there students that you do not want to factor into class ranking? I know that with some AAA students, they mark them to exclude. If that's the case, now, number one, you exclude them on the modify info page, but two, you check this box to make sure they don't show up in the list. Do you have early graduates in your district? If you do, but yet you still want them to be in the ranking for their grade level, you have to check this box to say, yes, include the early graduates. And y'all, this is the exit code for early graduates, so you have to tell it which ones to look so it knows to go and graduate as students and find the right person to come in.
But if you don't want your early graduates to count,
don't click and put any of that if you don't want them to.
And so this is for those of you who maybe in the past were not, didn't even have cumulative GPA set up correctly. This is how you can have rest assured that your cumulative GPA is one thing, but that your class rankings are actually, being counted by, again, 4 of these, 2 of these, right? Because some people calculate class rankings only on the basis of certain grades and certain courses per their policies. This is so that you can feel good that you're going to be able to, it's going to result in both. There's no need to alter your cumulative GPAs to make your class rankings work. True, and that's what we've seen in the past. We've seen schools that just don't count all of their attempts in their GPAs. Well, now you have a way to ensure that you have multiple GPA calculation methods, and you choose which one, how you actually will rank your students. I will say that that should be defined again in your policy and how you recognize, because class ranking is a numerical order of students, not necessarily. I mean, recognizing honor graduates can mean something else, and so the reason I bring that up is because there are many schools that, at the end of the day, when their final transcript is complete, it says that Stacy is number 8, but Stacy was not up on the stage as number 8, and someone has to be able to explain that to a student and the parent, because that final transcript is the gospel, regardless of how you actually arrange them on a stage or in an audience or which chords they wear. So
exactly. And once you get this set up, so this tells it how to go through and do those calculations, which GPA formula to use. Then the second thing that you have to do is set a recalculation frequency. And here are your options. You can set it to daily, weekly, monthly, when you store, or just only when you manually want to. Best practice is to do it daily. That way, if any updates are ever made to grades or access grades are pushed in, or transfer kids are coming in that you still want to be calculated in the class rank, so you always see a true class rank, then set daily. This is very similar to what we had to do in iNow. You know how when you would go put in transfer kids records and then you would go and reconcile GPA and class rank? This is doing it for you without you manually having to go do it if you set it to daily.
If you were to add something to the historical grades manually, would that calculate instantly because it's technically stored?
So if it's daily, it's overnight. So as soon as you store a grade with earned credit, if you've got it set to daily, then in that overnight process, it'll go and reshift your class ranking. Now, the first time you set this up, so as soon as you go and set that page that I just showed you up, you're going to need to go in here and recalculate it now to get it to kick off that process and put everybody in order. Once you do that, you can then go run your rank report. So if I go to system reports, No, I haven't yet. Excuse me, go to system, and I go to grades. Here is where we can go through. Oh, that's honor roll. No, class rank's going to do it automatically. I'm thinking honor roll. Sorry about that, guys. It is system reports we want to go. Lost my train of thought. We have under grading, there it is, the class ranking report. So once you have all that set up in there and you do that recalculation, they've got it stored on the record. And in fact, you see it again on that student screen because we pulled it there a minute ago and said that, Mickey Mouse was 74 out of 123 or something like that. You would choose your grade level. You would choose the class rank method. Well, right now, the only method that I set up was added value. Some of you might want to rank on different things for certain reasons. And then I hit submit. And I'm not going to show that, but I'm going to show a picture of what the report looks like. So once you run it, this is what you get. You get a listing of all the kids, their GPAs, and their percentiles. And so that's how the class ranking is. But you've got to have that GPA set up correctly first so that you can then get them put in that correct order. So that's what it takes to get the GPA, to get the class rank, and to get it run. The last thing is honor roll. And I know a lot of times high schools don't really care as much about that, middle and elementary, but sometimes high schools do want to still know who's all A, who's all A and B.
Before you go, can you run an alpha class rank?
No, because when it does all of the class rankings, it's taken into account that percentage inside of there. Yeah, somebody said, is there a way to run an alpha class rank listing? No, it's taking that percentage in there all the time because even though if you're on a default grade scale that has the A, B, C's, it's going to use the numerical value associated with that grade to actually do the calculations.
And you can run it both in. I don't think I'll ever be able to say other than standard and numeric, but you can run it in standard, rank them in standard GPA as well as numeric GPA. Will the report show both? I don't think it will.
No. You have to kind of do it one at a time. This report right here is a one-time run, get the list. But again, if you wanted to turn around, if you had a different type of class ranking in there, you would just move that in there and go. Yes, elementary, y'all would just use simple as yours. Simple or simple percent, whether you wanted the 4.0 scale or the 97, 98, whatever the grade was that they had.
Stacey, do you know if class ranking is displayed in the home portal? And if so, is there a place that people need to turn it off?
Class ranking is not displayed in the home portal. Just that one GPA value is. Okay. Actually, before we go to honor roll, let's actually talk about that transcript. Because now that we have all this working, we've got it displayed. How do I get the right thing on the transcript based on what I have set up on this page? Because I really want this screen, and let me go back to Mickey here.
Really would want all the ones.
Yeah, it's like, which ones do you want? Do you want to go ahead and put all 4 on there? Because you most definitely can. So remember, I want all of these. I'm just going to say I want all 4 of those to print on my transcript. Maybe I even want this high school potential credit. And I will tell you, just because, let me see if I can find it. Let me go back to Bradley. Remember, this is him in the real instance. I actually went a little extra special on that class ranking. Let me show you this. If I go back into him, if it lets me from here, and go to his cumulative info page, you can pull lots of DAT tags in on these at one time. Like, look at how I coded the class rank for the real production environment when I was at Opelika. It doesn't just say he's 178 out of 331. I say he's 178 out of 331 based on that GPA of 3.0263, and he's in the 53rd.73 percentile. That way, when you're looking at 4 or 3 GPAs, sometimes we forget which one of those GPAs are we actually using to rank them. This tells me which one I use to rank them if I use this formula. So if you want this formula, I'm going to put this in chat.
We also show what it looks like on the council.
Yep. Okay. So let me go to my, so if you want to be extra fancy with me because I like being extra fancy. It's big, y'all. Here's the DAT tag. Putting it in chat. Remember, you will need to swap out your method. So you see how mine's tagged to added value in that formula everywhere? If you use weighted, you would need to replace added value with weighted and so forth. And so that you can then get a nice little value inside of there.
do you think as a follow-up in either newsletter or something, you could also have these formulas included on the either a newsletter or a separate one on GPA methods?
We can definitely do that on there. All right, so you wanted to see counselor dashboard?
Or just to show them that same information shows in different places.
Yes. So like if I'm going back to his screen, and again, this is you will see that same information. So right here, this cumulative info page is just pulling what we just coded. Same exact thing. So you'll see all that. Oh, that's live. So I mean, it's the same thing, but let me show it here so you'll see all four. Counselor dashboard. Pilot. Oh, right there. Yeah, I can't see today, y'all. I've been looking at this computer screen all day. Pilot is doing something funny on me. Oh, there we go. I think they're still doing that up there. So yeah, here you see those four, weighted, unweighted, yada yada. Everything that I coded on that student screen, you see right here. So now, how do I get those to a transcript? All right, let me go back because I want to have two screens pulled up for you. So if I'm at I'm going to kind of use that same student info page. That screen up on that tab, and then now I'm going to go back here. All right. Your object reports. Again, you may or may not have access to these, but I'm going to pull the basic. This is actually a transcript that I designed and shared out across the state back when I was in Opelika. I know a lot of people have installed it in, but let me show you how to kind of edit it. If I go into setup in these object reports, here is one example of a transcript right here. What you have to do is find where all that GPA information is. So if I scroll down to find it, here it is. Text. It's right here. See how it's saying you seeing things about GPAs? I want to click into that text box. And here's what it's doing. It's kind of, again, that same tag. See, that looks exactly like what we saw over here on this screen. It's just, it has carets instead of tilde. So what I would need to do is I would want to edit, and whatever came out of the box to you in your district, if this is not what you want, like right now I've got this coded to pull the added value, which is our weighted standard. I've got it coded to pull weighted, which is our unweighted standard. And I've got it to pull the weighted percent, which is our unweighted numeric. So let's say that I also want to pull our weighted numeric. Then what I would do is come down here and, name it whatever I want. So this would be my cumulative weighted numeric GPA. And see, that's what somebody said, hey, can we change the name of them? Yep, the name of them. Great text. Whatever's right here is what's going to print on that transcript. And I want it to put some little coding in here. So I'm going to tab left, 2.5. This is the great thing about object reports, but you got all that. And then I'm actually going to come up here and just copy all that and paste. But I'm going to change this. It shouldn't say weighted percent. This was the A. This. So I've added another line to it. I've got my class ranking. I've got total credits. Now this is a hard copy because for this school they need 26 credits to graduate. For state, 24. You might say 25, depending on what your district is. And then I've got it pulling total credits earned. You can pull the potential if you want to. Again, this is what you would pull. Kind of that same HS potential credits. That's what it's named. Come back here. Once you get that updated how you want to make sure you're pulling the right formulas from what you've set up earlier, you're going to hit submit. And so now let's go pull Mickey and print this transcript and show what it looks like. So Mickey is my student selection. So I am going to go to my group functions, to printing, print reports, choose that transcript, hit submit, refresh it till I have it ready, and I'm very impatient, so I just keep refreshing, hit view, And here is all of his historical grades. Here is his current schedule. And you see I would need to do some adjustments on my, let me zoom in down here. That's a little below the bottom, so I would need to adjust where this box is. That's the hard part about object reports. So for my tech people online, you know what I'm talking about. We would need to move those. But you see that it now is presenting every one of those that we need.
So could we also do, could we do another on one of our upcoming WebExes that are just specific to report cards and transcripts?
Yes.
Because I know that I think it's at least two different LEAs. They have the most amazing transcripts I think I've seen yet, from other states. And so I know that many of you really want to find value in having certain things. Like I know Lori asked earlier, can you put potential credits on the transcript instead of just what's earned? I know that in my school where I came from, the most important thing for me would be the actual summary of credit types. I would want it on my transcript for it to say that Sean he's already earned 3 of his 4 sciences, and I would want that to be on that transcript. So you may find some things that's important to you at the local level. And I know many of you are on here thinking, if we're all calling it something different, will that potentially become a problem or issue later? And I would really suggest that you look at a way to describe that grading scale. And I know that there will be districts that actually find a way to describe what the grading scales are on their transcripts. They'll have a box that says, this is what my grading scale is. And so I think we've still got time to work through some things, before spring break and before the end of the school year, because some of these things are just really a higher priority than others. And I know report cards and transcripts are absolutely critical to us.
Oh, very much so. And I'll tell you, just if you have either one of the reports that I put out there, I don't know how many of you have seen the spreadsheet that's got all of the templates that I have out there shared. But once you go into them, here's the transcript object that shows what all is being pulled. And you can kind of poke around in here and see, like right now, I've got it set to pull the F1s, and I've got it set to pull percent, and I've got it set to pull the earned credit hours. But here's kind of all the different things that you can do. And you can do other, and if you know the correct technical DAT tag, you can then go in and add that in. So there's lots of play and manipulation that can be done in here. It's just, I know that we're at the point that we need something out there so that we can get our feet off the ground, because we have seniors who need to graduate in May. We can do that. We will get fancy with this and make this very individualized as we move on down the line. And yes, I do plan on doing some trainings to show kind of how to do all of this other stuff. Right now, we're hitting the hot burning topics.
Great question. Would you also need to set all this up in the graduated school for printing transcripts after graduation?
So actually, you can use the as of feature to pull up a withdrawn or kid that's been moved to another school in the district, so it will print what you need at your school. I have seen sometimes it still will say that they're in graduated school. So what I do recommend is to have another version of the transcript in graduated school that doesn't use DAT tags to pull the school information, like code it to a specific school so that if you have multiple high schools, you can pull it for the right one and then pull it in there. But yes, some of this will need to be set up inside of there as well.
Is that something you could write in your guidance in the next newsletter or something? All right, honor roll.
We can work on that. All right, honor roll. So how do we get that? And this is very quick, down and dirty on this. So actually, let me swap to one of the intermediate schools. And to set up honor roll, it has to be set up at the school level. So I'm in school. I'm going to go to set up school. And under grading, there is this honor roll set up. You have to define an honor roll. So I'm going to do the basic all A, AB honor roll. You name it. So you would hit new, and then when you hit new, it's just going to ask for a name. That's all that is. Once you create the honor roll, you then are going to do levels. You need whatever levels you want to do. Here's very important. Put them in the hierarchy you want them to run. Because the way this is set up, it's going to search for all A's first. Then it's going to search for those at A and B. And whenever it finds somebody who meets the criteria, it stops and does not check them for any subsequent levels. So you want to make sure you have the highest to the lowest in there in that ranking. So if I look at the all A honor roll, here I have it set up to do all A honor roll. I made a description. It's going to be the first thing I want it to check against. And I put a message in here. Now let me tell you why I put this message in here. If you have this system calculating honor roll and you run it after you store grades and before you print report cards, you can actually pull a DAT tag to your report card for anybody who made honor roll to say congratulations on making all A honor roll. Like you can make it that specific inside of here. You do need to type to a GPA calculation method, and I created one that says honor roll, and I'll show it to you in a minute. But all it does is restrict what term it is, because if not, it kind of searches that whole transcript, and I don't want to search. I want to search it for a specific year and for a specific quarter at each time. I don't say that it needs to be compared to anything. Like, I'm just using this for restriction. It's not actually being used for a calculation. Where I do the search is actually in the grade options. So in this instance, we run the 100-point grade scale, which means I have to literally list the individual grades that an A constitutes. If you are using a default grade scale, then literally you would just need to say, give me every kid who only has the letter A as a grade. Or if you do A plus, A minus, you need to add all three. Same rules apply as before. If you put multiple entries in, put a comma and put no spaces inside of there. So if you'll see right here, all A's are just all the 90s and 100s that we have in there. And if I go back to the AB level, you'll see I have the exact same setup, except for the grades that are allowed are all A's and all B's. So it's the same thing. I want this, congratulations, being on all AB honor roll. I'm going to tag it to the honor roll GPA, and again, I'll show you how that is in a second. And then I say I only want kids who have the B's or the A's as a grade. Okay. Once you set that honor roll up, then you have to actually calculate the honor roll. So to calculate the honor roll, you have to go to System, and under Grades, you see Calculate Honor Roll. What store code? So I want to calculate it for Q1, and I want to run the all A and AB honor roll. And we hit Submit. It's going to process. It's going to go through this screen, and it says Calculation Complete. Then you're going to run your honor roll report to see who made honor roll. And here it does two things. It writes it to the honor roll report, but it also puts a record on the student screen. So if I were to, and I'll go back to the high school in a minute. Well, actually, let me go ahead and do it just to kind of show you, and I'll show you where the report is. If I go to Mickey, I think I ran it on him in here. There is over here. Yep, there it is. Under academics is honor roll. Anytime you ever run it and it tags the student, it puts a record. So as the kid progresses through school, you will always be able to go back and see they made AB honor roll Q1 of their 11th grade year. They made it their Q2, Q3, Q4, year long, however you want to run it. It keeps a running record of that honor roll. Somebody had asked me one time, hey, Stacy, does it do the same thing with class rank? Can I see it in a moment in time? It does not do it natively, but you can actually set up an honor roll method to calculate the class ranking based on it and tag it in there as well. So there's ways to manipulate that if you want to do that.
Let me ask this: do you have to have a specific permission to run the honor roll, or is that something that your system person has to do for all schools?
No, it's school by school. So somebody at the school level could be set up to do this if the district wanted to set it up that way. Once you get the honor roll calculated, to get the entire list of who made honor roll, there is an honor roll report under System Reports. It is right here. So you would say, I want to run it for all students. You could even select just your one grade level, like make those your current student selection and run it on those if you wanted to. Title the report whatever you want. Choose which honor roll method you want to do. So I'm going to do AB for Q1. Once you hit Submit, you're going to get a screen. Over. Oh, no, it's here because I'm grabbing the wrong box. You get a screen that looks like this. It'll give you the list of the students' names, and it'll list all the kids who made a honor roll in alphabetical order first, their GPA, which is just going to calculate, and then it'll go into the AB. So it'll give you the whole list of everybody that made it for that individual quarter. So now, how do I know that I'm restricting it to that specific quarter or that specific year? So let me go back to the district office and show you that honor roll GPA calculation that I had to set up that works in conjunction with this. If I go back to district, I go down to grading, and I do GPA calculations, calculation methods again. That's where we saw all the formulas. Notice I have this honor roll one. It does have a formula in there, guys. It's just the simple honor roll is what I had. but it's really not doing anything. It's checking grades. It's not checking GPAs. It's looking at stored grades. The reason I set it up is because I use these two fields right here, this one and this one, as restrictors. So that when I run that or set up that honor roll at the school, I have to know here to come back and say, okay, I need this honor roll to be just for the 2021 school year, just for quarter two. Those are only grades I want it to look at. So that when I go to a student's historical grades page, I know that it's only looking at quarter two grades for 2021 when it goes to see who made A's and B's. Now, if it comes to the end of the year and I want a yearly who made an overall final average of all A's and B's, well, then all I've got to do is swap this to F1 for 2021 and have it search those grades. Like, you tell it here where you're wanting to do it inside of the GPA, and then go run it back in over on the honor roll side. Okay. So again, does not matter which one of these. It's just used strictly for restriction purposes. It is not being used to actually do anything with including the GPA in there. It's going to print a GPA on there, but it's a simple GPA. Does not matter which one of those formulas you pull. So guys, that is GPA front to back, class rank, how it filters in there, how to get them on the transcript, how to look at GPA validation to see where errors might be, and class honor roll. Can't even talk. So I know we've had a ton of questions.
And I don't have the one since I.
Yeah, is there? Let's see.
And some of them only went to you, probably.
I got you. And y'all, this is being recorded, so I'll go back out and I'll copy all these to see if I can do an FAQ. But I know you might have already typed something in, but is there anything that we haven't shown in here or something that you're seeing that I can help with? I know we were supposed to end it too, but I've got a few more minutes to stay on it.
Is there a way to include access grades in your school's honor report or honor roll?
So we know that there's an issue with access grades right now, guys. What the state has pushed in, they have pushed in the grade. It's to not calculate in anything. What you're going to have to do, there are some directions that were sent out a couple weeks ago to tech directors. It was put in the newsletter, so it went to principals and whatnot. You're going to have to manually, it's kind of like I now. You know how when we got the grades from P2L and you had to manually put them on the transcript? Well, even though you see them on the transcript, you need to manually re-enter them on the transcript, where you add the GPA value to it, you add the credit that's awarded to it, and that way it will include those inside of the calculations. Unfortunately, both grades will print on a transcript right now. We will eventually get that fixed, but we've got to get PowerSchool to literally redo how Cross LEA is built because it did not take into consideration these pieces that it needed to. So we will get that done. Somebody said, do I understand correctly that if we need a GPA for the current term and or year, we will have to set them up individually? For example, our magnet schools need the current year's GPA for the students. So, Rayanne, you could actually, when you have your GPA set up, so let's say you wanted to go run one to store it somehow as an honor roll or something, you would need to go in and restrict it to just that year to look at. But GPA is something that is always calculated on the fly. So it's not like you can run it and say that, oh, well, this is just the 2021 year GPA. It's always going to be the most up to date. So what you would want to do is set up an honor roll that says, hey, go give me in fact, I'll just show it to you. Let's do it here. I would go into the school. This is Stacy's workaround method. I would set up an honor roll, a new method, and we're going to call it GPA. Submit, levels, new. It's just to store GPA, so I'm going to name it GPA. I don't care about any of this. Let's say that I want to store my added value GPA for what they make each quarter, each year, each whatever. Choose the correct GPA method that you want to record somewhere. I'm going to record it. Let's use, I'm going to use added value. And I say, I want you to give me anybody who has a GPA that is greater than or equal to 0.01. Give it something bigger than 0. I might could even use 0. I don't know. I haven't checked that. And I'm going to hit submit. That's all I'm doing. What did I do? Saying that? Hang on, y'all. Oh, I saved it twice. Okay, so there it is. Not putting the method. So this is level 1. Calculation. Great. All right, now it's not wanting to do it for me. I did this the other day with the district. What is the method? It shouldn't be. Let's try it with a different one and see if it'll. Let's do greater than or equal to 0. I want it numeric. Don't care about those. I'm not worried about any grades. Okay, now it's going squirrely on me. But just the same way that we do the A and the B, if you set up the levels, run it, and then it stores to that honor roll grade table ran, it would go in and show, just like we showed a while ago on Mickey Mouse, that it had in quarter 1, they had a GPA of whatever based on that honor roll. You would get that same thing. So like right here, it would show what that GPA was at that moment in time. So you just don't put those qualifications of actually looking at the A's and the B's. You just put, give me anybody who's got a GPA greater than 0, and it tags it. That way you have a timestamp of, for the 2021 school year, for, and I would look for a Y1 or excuse me, F1, then I would post here and always be able to refer back to what that GPA was for that moment in time or for that specific school year, that makes sense.
Is there a way for the transcript to reflect, or indicate that something was actually weighted currently?
Only if you do some manual manipulation in there. Like what I've seen, some schools want to do this and some don't. It's completely up to you. But if I go to historical grades, you could go in here and go, okay, this is considered a weighted class. So I'm going to come in here to the name, and I'm going to put an asterisk behind it. Yeah, it probably does. Put some kind of notation on it. And then save it. And then put a legend on your, just like we had that text box that had the GPA information, you could create a legend on your transcript that says, hey, any course that has an asterisk on the name, so like now if I print this report, print the transcript, you would see the asterisk and they would know. I didn't put the legend on there, but you kind of get the idea is that if you did put it there, here's how it would show. And so now do you see how there's an asterisk right there by that course? You would just need something maybe over here or up here that says, hey, if you see these, it means.
And would you put it at the course level so that when you store grades, it would actually, the asterisk?
Yeah, you could. If you update that name and stick it on there, it definitely could. All right, well, guys, as y'all know, this is recorded, so I'm actually going to stop the recording now so it can start rendering.